I'm Dwight Drummond. Tonight, the U.S. Supreme Court ends constitutional protections for abortion that had been in place for nearly 50 years.
The health and life of women in this nation are now at risk.
As Roe v. Wade is overturned, we look at reactions both south of the border and here at home. Plus,
we need unity because the road ahead, it won't be easy.
Doug Ford's cabinet was sworn in today. We'll have details on what some are calling a controversial appointment. And
pride is life. Pride is everything. Honestly, it's the way that we live.
It's the first Pride Parade since 2019. What folks can expect from the celebrations this weekend. Women in the United States no longer have a constitutional right to an abortion. The Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade is being met with both jubilation and fury. It's expected to lead to total abortion bans in roughly half of America's states. Chris Glover has the details on today's ruling and the reaction now from Washington.
Some were jubilant when the decision was announced.
So for the older generation of pro-lifers to see this today, I'm so grateful for them and their perseverance.
Others devastated.
They are not pro-life. They're pro-hypocrisy, pro-birth, and pro-control. All they really care about is controlling and suppressing women.
Learning the U.S. Supreme Court had struck down Roe v. Wade, the ruling that legalized abortion across the country 50 years ago. With today's landmark decision, abortion immediately became illegal in several states where anti-abortion laws had been drafted in anticipation of the decision. Abortion is now expected to be banned or severely restricted in more than 20 states. President Joe Biden spoke to the nation, calling it a sad day for America and the court.
The consequences and the consensus of the American people, core principles of equality, liberty, dignity, and the stability of the rule of law demand that Roe should not have been overturned.
Biden said he would do what he could to protect abortion in states where it is now illegal. He also urged Americans outraged by today's ruling to vote in the midterm elections in November. Congress has the authority to make abortion legal nationwide, something the president himself cannot do.
Reproductive freedom is on the ballot in November.
Recent polls show around 60% of Americans oppose overturning Roe v. Wade. Democrats are expected to try to capitalize on that sentiment. Many Republicans support today's ruling, insisting it's about protecting the sanctity of life.
This great nation can now live up to its core principle, that all are created equal, not born equal, created equal.
In his concurring opinion, conservative Justice Clarence Thomas said the court should now reconsider past rulings on same-sex marriage and contraception. Protests are expected to last especially through the weekend, but with emotions running high on both sides of the abortion debate, the president was today calling for peace through the weekend. Chris Glover, CBC News, Washington.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reacted to the news while attending the Commonwealth Summit in Rwanda. He calls the U.S. Supreme Court decision a devastating setback.
Today's a difficult day. The judgment coming out of the United States is an attack on women's freedom, and quite frankly, it's an attack on everyone's freedoms and rights. Let me be really, really clear. In Canada, we will always defend women's rights to choose and continue to work to expand access to the full range of reproductive and health and services across the country. But today, I think of those generations of women around the world, and specifically in the United States, who fought so hard to gain rights and continue to fight today to get more and more rights, because there's still so much more work to do, and are facing this devastating setback. It shows how much standing up and fighting for rights matters every day.
The impacts of today's Supreme Court decision are being felt right around the world. Many people with strong reaction to the news, including right here at home. For that, we go to Dale Manukduk, who's been talking with Torontonians. Dale, what have you been hearing?
Well, this is obviously a polarizing issue, Dwight, both personally and politically. I've spoken with men, women, young and old, and even a U.S. citizen. Everyone that we spoke to down in downtown Toronto was pretty heartbroken over the decision.
You know, my fear is that young women see the news coming out of the States today, and what it shows is women are not important. Our bodies are not important. We don't have freedom to make decisions for our own bodies.
The Republicans were very, saw the judiciary as the most important branch of government to control and have done that very effectively.
They're going back in time. They're not moving forward. So it's has an impact on me, and I'm a man, and I think it's sad, incredible.
Now, that's obviously a small sample of reaction. I should note that when the decision came down, CBC Radio opened up the phone lines. Several Canadians called in support of the ruling, hoping that similar action and restrictions would come here to Canada.
Yeah, that's the next question there. You know, you've had a chance to speak with people on the front lines of both pro-choice and those who are anti-abortion. What are they saying to you today?
It's just as you would assume, Dwight. There's rage, anger, and sadness from pro-choice advocates and celebration from anti-abortion stakeholders. There's this fear that what happened in the States could have a cascading effect on women's rights here in Canada. And similarly, there's a hope that they will trickle north of the border and reignite the debate on abortion laws.
I cried for 45 minutes. I knew it was happening. We all knew it was happening. Those of us who work in the reproductive justice movement obviously saw it coming down the road. Those of us who follow fundamentalist movements across the world saw it coming down the road, but it is still devastating.
I think the worst thing for the pro-life movement is for abortion not to be talked about, not to be thought about. And so we're hoping that this will start conversations between neighbors, friends, family members, and that people will start to talk about what abortion really is.
Now, as you saw earlier, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is completely against this ruling, calling it horrific. And in a statement, opposition leader Candice Bergen said that the Conservative Party will not reopen the abortion debate, a sentiment echoed by Doug Ford when the ruling first leaked back in May. Dwight?
Thank you, Dale. And Premier Doug Ford's new cabinet is now in place. Most of the core ministers from the previous cabinet are keeping their jobs, but there are some notable changes, including Ford's decision to appoint his nephew to cabinet. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has the highlights.
Walking out in blazing sunshine, Ontario's new cabinet. It's a lot like the old cabinet. 2/3 of the ministers now hold the same post they had before the election.
As Premier and President of the Council and Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs of the Province of Ontario.
The biggest cabinet promotion? Sylvia Jones takes over as Health Minister and Deputy Premier.
We've made a lot of commitments, and we're going to fulfill that because we need to make sure that our healthcare system is ready for whatever comes its way.
Jones was Solicitor General in the previous government. She oversaw the COVID-19 vaccine rollout and took heat for closing playgrounds and giving police carding powers in the third wave. The most eyebrow-raising new appointment to cabinet? The Premier's nephew.
I, Michael Douglas Ford.
The 28-year-old rookie MPP becomes Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism.
Whoever you are, wherever you come from, that you're welcome in Ontario, and you'll be given the opportunity to come here and to live, work, and play.
The 30-member cabinet includes 7 people of color and 7 women.
This is the first time we've ever seen the PC caucus have black MPPs and a black woman on cabinet, and so I know this is opening many doors, and it's just challenging those narratives and stereotypes and breaking down these barriers.
This will be the biggest cabinet Premier Doug Ford has ever presided over. One of the added posts, a new associate minister responsible for housing.
We need to build more homes. We need to build more attainable homes. It's not a problem that will be easily solved.
2 notable names Ford dumped from his cabinet. Lisa MacLeod is out. The longtime MPP for Nepean issued a statement saying she's taking time off to improve her physical and mental health. Also, Sault Ste. Marie's Ross Romano is no longer a minister. The new cabinet won't hold its first meeting until sometime next week, and there's still no word on when the legislature will be called back for a throne speech and a budget. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
As Mike mentioned, the Premier named a member of his own family to cabinet. We haven't found an example of that ever happening before. Lorena Radikoff has more on the reaction to what many are calling nepotism.
Michael Ford is the only minister who could be saying Uncle Doug at the cabinet table. Online, people immediately called it nepotism.
How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm so proud of you.
The new minister and first-time MPP denies that.
I completely dismiss that. I've had the honor of serving on the Toronto District School Board, serving on Toronto City Council in one of the most diverse communities in one of the most diverse cities in the world.
Great to see you.
The Premier also stands behind his pick.
Well, he's very, very qualified, 10 years of political experience.
50K is not okay. During the swearing-in, a small group of protesters demanded the government shorten the wait list for children with autism to get care. Here's how one of them reacted.
That's what this government does. They help advance their friends and their donors and their family, obviously. So it's not shocking. Is he qualified?
Michael Ford has been criticized before for benefiting from his family name. On City Council, he continued a Ford dynasty, taking over in the seat that had been held by another uncle, the late Rob Ford. Michael Ford was 22 at the time, then the youngest person elected to council, now 28.
There are plenty of people, people of color, in Ford's caucus that could take that position, and he chose to appoint his nephew. And as we all know, the qualifications there are dubious.
But another cabinet minister reappointed today doesn't see an issue.
I like Michael. He's a great guy. He's a diligent worker. I think he proved himself at Toronto City Council, and I'm really looking forward to working with him.
The Premier's office confirms that just like last time, ministers' mandate letters will not be made public. The CBC is still fighting to have them released from the previous Ford administration. The case is headed to the Supreme Court of Canada. It means that, at least for now, we won't find out what the priorities are for Michael Ford or any other ministers. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
We are heading into the big Pride Parade weekend. Toronto's Village neighborhood will see tens of thousands of people marching and celebrating the first in-person Pride Festival in 2 years. Alicia Son joins us live from Church Street. And Ali, what's the vibe like ahead of this weekend's big celebrations?
Dwight, the vibes are so right. There's a lot of joy in the air. There's a lot of pride in the air. After 2 years of not being able to do this in person, this Pride is special to a lot of people.
Pride in person, the way it was meant to be.
It's like a family. No prejudice against anything. Everybody together. So that's the great thing about it.
After 2 years of virtual Pride events, people will finally be able to celebrate together in the truest sense. You're encouraged, of course, to mitigate your risk during a pandemic by wearing a mask.
I'm probably gonna be masked up. Probably for pictures, I'll take it off, but yeah. But I'm still gonna hug people because it's just that feeling of closeness that I wanna just experience again.
Expressing yourself, grabbing a pint, colorful people, and puppy watching.
Charlotte and Riley are getting married next month.
Love is love, guys.
Exactly.
Doing all of this in person again.
It hits different.
Marissa Rosa Grant is this year's BIPOC Pride ambassador.
It is such a sweet, full circle moment to be a guest of honor at Pride. I remember my first time coming out even, and it was really much solidified by attending Pride.
They work to create safe yet fun spaces for queer women and non-binary folks of color.
So to now be part of Pride and doing the work that I do in community, to just be able to celebrate with people and also be appreciated for the work that I do is just a lovely thing.
Speaking of Pride ambassadors,
The Gloria C. Swain.
Yes, hey.
The Pride Ambassador for Seniors, a role that's again about making sure everyone is represented at Pride.
I'm hoping to empower other older queer people to come out and take their place within the community, right? Because they've slowly just stepped back. Because at a certain age, you get erased. So it's about standing up for yourself and others.
One of the greatest examples of that is the Trans March, which takes place tonight. Kara helped organize the first one ever back in 2009.
The one thing I actually love about Trans Pride is that it's all inclusive, because everybody is welcome to march. You could even grab someone off the street, off the sidewalk and walk.
These are the folks who make sure every stripe on the rainbow flag is represented to make for a more inclusive, accepting city.
Happy Pride! And that's what I love about Pride that much, that everyone is inclusive and everybody loves each other and everyone's just so happy to be there.
What are you looking forward to tomorrow?
Seeing people shine when they've been so hidden for so long.
So some of the finishing touches are still being done here along Church Street. Tonight, it really kicks off with the Trans March starting at 8 o'clock in the evening. And then tomorrow we have the Dyke March. And then, of course, we have Sunday, the penultimate Pride Parade. Send it back to you, Dwight.
Thank you, Ali. Dahlia, people are watching the forecast closely. Big party weekend in the city.
That's right. I mean, great weather tonight for the Trans March, but when we come to the Pride Parade, not so much, but I'll get to that later. Let's start off with the normal highs this time of year, 25 degrees. Right now, we're sitting well above that at 28 degrees. It was nice today. It felt better than 2 days ago when it was really humid. The low is 15, and we're sitting right about that as well. The current temperatures in Toronto, 28 degrees. In Windsor, the hot spot, it feels like 30 degrees and a little bit on the cooler side in Kingston. Now let's take a look here. There is some heat warnings that are in effect right now. So as you can see in Windsor and Toronto, and that will be lasting until Saturday and Sunday. But as for tonight, I mean, the weather will be cooling down right now, clear skies. And we see that actually right now there's a little bit of cloud coverage, but it's just passing through. For the most part, it's going to be a lovely evening, sitting at a low 18 and winds gusting at southeasterly at 20 kilometers an hour. Tomorrow is when things really ramp up with that heat warning. So 31 degrees. It's going to feel like 34 with that humid X. So if you're planning on hitting any of the Pride parades tomorrow, then make sure you're well hydrated. Take care of your loved ones, any elders or children. Have that sunscreen on you, and just have something to keep on just to make sure you're protected and in the shade. Dwight?
Thank you for that, Dahlia.
This weather update is brought to you by Charlevoix Train, one of the most beautiful railways in Canada. Discover this spectacular railway from Quebec City.
Peel police have identified the man who was shot and killed in Mississauga on Wednesday. The victim is 45-year-old Rohan Bennett. Police responded to the reports of gunfire at a residential complex near Glen Erin Drive and Britannia Road around 10 p.m. on Wednesday. Bennett was found suffering from multiple gunshot wounds and was pronounced dead at the scene. No suspect description at this time, but investigators say this was likely a targeted incident. They're asking anyone with information or video surveillance from the community to come forward. And Toronto police have issued a Canada-wide warrant for a man wanted in connection with a fatal shooting near Shepherd and Yonge subway station. 30-year-old Kiarash Parzam is wanted in connection with the June 15th murder. Police say he's considered armed and dangerous. The victim is a 28-year-old Kian Hosseini, who was found shot outside of the subway station. Investigators are also searching for a vehicle used at the time of the shooting. It's described as a silver 2014 Hyundai Tucson with Ontario license plates CVBA 460. Police and city officials say they have a plan to unclog city streets. Traffic is nearing levels not seen for more than 2 years, and officials say it's time to take action. Starting next week, Toronto Police will resume ticketing that was paused during the pandemic. Ali Kalada has what you need to know.
Even midday on a Friday, the roads are filling up.
The traffic is getting worse by the day.
So many cars, all taillights. I don't know what it is. I don't know if people forgot how to drive because of the pandemic, but it's really bad.
The pandemic temporarily eased congestion in the city, but officials say traffic is back.
Traffic levels are now up in the 90s in terms of the percentage of vehicles that are on the roads compared to before the pandemic. We have to take action.
I can tell you, as someone who has sat in that traffic, traffic is so congested right now. Enforcement needs to happen because we need those curb lane spaces.
Starting Monday morning, Toronto Police will be ticketing vehicles stopped on rush hour routes.
Please remember, no stopping means exactly that. You're not allowed to stop your vehicle to drop off or pick someone up, or to make a delivery or pick something up.
Come July 4th, those breaking the rules will have their vehicles towed and impounded.
But on the other hand, I hope maybe they do in this initial period write a lot of tickets so that the message gets out there that we just cannot continue to have people disregard the law and act in a selfish manner.
And officials warn it's just a start. There's more over the coming weeks.
Vehicles that are entering intersections, knowing full well that they will not clear the intersection before the light turns green for other way of traffic. That is an offense under the Toronto Municipal Code. It's a $125 fine, and we will be issuing those tickets.
Already last week, police issued more than 2,900 tickets, more than 1,000 for speeding, 27 of those for stunt driving. Officers wrote 753 tickets for aggressive driving, 183 for distracted driving, and arrested 25 people for impaired driving.
We're looking at every single possible measure we can to keep people safe, first and foremost, but also to keep people moving.
Natalie Collada, CBC News, Toronto.
Our Toronto Raptors only had one draft pick last night, and they used it to get a 7-1 center.
With the 33rd pick in the 2022 NBA Draft, the Toronto Raptors select Christian Koloko from Douala, Cameroon, and the University of Arizona.
We'll bring you the details and tell you how many Canadian athletes were picked in the draft coming up.
With the 6th pick in the 2022 NBA Draft, the Indiana Pacers select Benedict Mathurin from Montreal, the NBA Academy Latin America, and the University of Arizona.
A lot of CanCon at the 2022 NBA Draft. Benedict Mathurin just turned 20 on Sunday, the Pac-12 Player of the Year, 6'5", or 6'6", rather, from Montreal, went 6th to Indiana. And then with the 7th pick, the Portland Trail Blazers selected Shaedon Sharpe from London, Ontario, 6'5" guard. Other Canadians going in the second round were Andrew Nembhard, shout out to his dad, Claude, here in Toronto, and he went to Indiana. And who is that? Caleb Houston went to Orlando at number 32. Our Toronto Raptors only had one pick in last night's NBA Draft, and they used it to select a 22-year-old Cameroonian-born player who didn't start playing basketball seriously until his mid-teens. Greg Ross has his story.
The Toronto Raptors select Christian Koloko from Douala, Cameroon, and the University of Arizona.
The newest Raptor is a 7'1" center. Christian Koloko has been on the Raptors' radar for about 5 years now, although he's yet to see the city.
I heard a lot of good things about Toronto, so I'm really excited to go there and get to work for sure.
Koloko does have a couple of connections to this city and the team.
Pascal gets it back, bucket and book it.
First and foremost, Raptors star Pascal Siakam and Koloko are both from the same hometown of Douala, Cameroon.
He means everything, man. He means everything. You know, he's the first person from Douala to go to the NBA and to get to that level. And he's an NBA champ. He's an NBA All-Star.
Same hometown. That is something. That is something. I'm sure it'll be interesting to see those two guys together.
Congratulations. Welcome to the team, Christian. Welcome. Look, I'm wearing your hat right here.
Koloko says he also has developed a good relationship with Raptors president Masai Ujiri, who has done a lot to promote the game of basketball in Africa.
He see the potential in African basketball. He believes in African players, and what he's doing, I think, is really amazing.
While getting a chance to play in the NBA is a dream come true for Koloko, he says it wasn't a lifelong goal.
I played soccer my whole life, until I was 17. But the first time, because where I'm from, basketball, soccer is big. It's the biggest sport. Like, basketball is not big at all. So the first time I went to play on a basketball court, I was like, yeah, I really like this sport.
Koloko! Despite his late start in basketball, Raptors coach Nick Nurse is certain that Koloko can develop into a player that can help the team sooner rather than later.
Still a little bit of a development phase, but I think there's a lot of potential there with the size and the feet and the timing and things that are already there that he could probably, help us.
Koloko is expected to start next season with the Raptors 905 in Mississauga, where he'll have a chance to not only hone his basketball skills, but also get used to living in Canada and, of course, dealing with a Canadian winter.
I've seen snow probably once in my whole lifetime, so I'm definitely that's probably going to be my first purchase when I get my first check. Is going to be buying a big jacket.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Thank you.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is meeting with leaders at the Commonwealth Conference today. We'll bring you to Rwanda after the break. Stay with us. We're coming right back. Prince Charles told Commonwealth countries today that they can cut relations with the monarchy if they wish. He described the trip to Canada in May as an example of what can be done to address wrongs of the past. David Cochran reports.
As Commonwealth leaders gather in Kigali, the heir to the British throne told them it was okay to sever ties with the monarchy.
I want to say clearly, as I have said before, that each member's constitutional arrangement, as republic or monarchy, is purely a matter for each member country to decide.
It was a clear statement from Prince Charles at a time of great transition for the monarchy. Several Caribbean countries have removed the Queen as their head of state, with others poised to follow suit. But as he spoke about the future of the monarchy, the future monarch urged countries to grapple with the wrongs of their past. Actions, he says, taken in an earlier age with different and lesser values, urging countries to look to Canada and its efforts to seek reconciliation as an example to follow.
In Canada recently, my wife and I were deeply touched to meet many of those engaged in the ongoing process of reconciliation. Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples reflecting honestly and openly on one of the darkest aspects of history.
Commonwealth leaders start their meetings in earnest today without some of their biggest and most important members. The leaders of Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Pakistan, and India are skipping the summit, with South Africa and India meeting with Russia yesterday rather than with their Commonwealth colleagues. David Cochran, CBC News, Kigali, Rwanda.
Ukrainian troops are retreating from a key city in the eastern part of the country. This comes after intense fighting and vows by Ukrainian soldiers to win back all the territory Russia has captured. Chris Brown has the latest.
After fighting house by house, Ukrainian soldiers are finally conceding the city of Severodonetsk to Russia. Russia threw almost every resource it had into the fight, including its most destructive thermobaric rocket launchers. The enemy is carrying out an assault to surround our troops, said the Ukrainian colonel. And while Ukraine could have pulled back sooner, its generals opted to fight to try to wear down Russian forces and perhaps buy time for more sophisticated Western weapons to arrive, such as this American HIMARS rocket system. Russia says it has thousands of Ukrainian prisoners in custody, but there's no confirmation of that. Ukrainian Marine Corporal Hlib Stryjko was taken prisoner by Russia after its forces prevailed in Mariupol. A former teacher, Stryjko, who's 25, was in the port city during Russia's siege. He remembers being on the third floor of a building when a tank fired on his position. I saw a bright light and an explosion, and the floor collapsed under me, he said. He fell 3 stories and was buried in concrete and rubble, breaking bones all over his body. Pulled out by comrades, 2 days later the Russians agreed to take Ukraine's most badly wounded to their hospitals and paraded them before the cameras. Stryjko was even interviewed on Russian TV while he was in custody, here reciting his name and unit number. He was swapped for Russian prisoners 2 weeks later. In my opinion, good Russians do not exist, he says. My country will only be safe when Russia is destroyed. For any Ukrainian soldiers taken prisoner now, he urged them to think far ahead. The territory is only temporarily occupied. We will liberate every centimeter of Ukrainian land, he said.
Capturing Severodonetsk is not as militarily significant for Russia as taking Mariupol. In fact, some defense analysts believe by wearing Russia's forces down, Ukraine may now be in a better position to launch counteroffensives later in the summer. Chris Brown, CBC News, Kyiv.
They've been living in limbo for months, but now some Afghan families are a bit closer to Canada. They and the Canadian government say they've been waiting for help from Pakistan, and it finally arrived. Rafi Boujakanian explains.
When flights carrying Afghans fled Kabul last summer, Asad Ali Afghan could not hop on. The former Canadian military interpreter's wife was pregnant with their daughter at the time, moving quickly, impossible. They fled the Taliban to neighboring Pakistan.
The electricity fails for 1 hour, 2 hours in this hot weather. Just imagine 45 degrees and this hot weather.
With no official documents, they and some 40 other families have remained mostly in hiding.
If police catch you, then they will say that you have entered illegally because you don't have passports and visa.
Canadian officials told them that because of that, they would not be allowed to legally exit Pakistan, despite approval to come to Canada. In May, the families protested in front of the Canadian embassy. Now, movement. Pakistan says it will allow safe passage to Afghans who have approval for travel from a third country. But that bit of good news is bittersweet for this former recruit of the Canadian Armed Forces. Jamil Nouri says when his father fell ill in Pakistan, the hospital didn't take him right away, citing the family's lack of documentation. Without proper care, he died.
It's heartbreaking when you hear stories like this.
The immigration minister says the move by Pakistan means the families can now be brought to Canada faster.
This has been a significant period of time in the works to have the Pakistani government give permission for those who are destined for Canada to pass through to Pakistan.
Last year, Canada promised to bring 40,000 Afghans here. So far, more than 16,000 have arrived. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
Send back to Dahlia. She has our weather headlines. Dahlia?
Yes, that's right. You got any plans for the weekend, Dwight?
I'll be partying a little bit on the patio somewhere, sure.
Good. Make sure you have some water with you because although tomorrow is going to be a hot day, there is a heat warning in effect, so it's going to be muggy and hot and humid, but there is a risk of a thunderstorm on Sunday, which we'll get to in a bit, and you'll have dry commutes next week. Right now, we're sitting at 28 degrees in Toronto, Hamilton, the same thing in St. Catharines. Mississauga feels like 28 degrees as well. Now, there is a heat warning that I was talking about earlier. That will be in effect for Saturday and Sunday. It will bring temperatures up to about mid-30s, so it's going to be really hot. Same thing in Windsor. That heat warning is in effect right now. Clear skies, a little bit of cloud coverage coming through, but for the most part, we're getting a lot of sunshine. As for that rain that I was talking about, well, it will be coming through on Sunday. So we see that cloud coverage peeking through, coming in on Sunday at 1 a.m. And then you see that green, well, that activity is starting to peek through, that precipitation, and it will feel like about 34 on that day. Same thing, you see the clouds going in, but it starts to clear up on Monday at 4 p.m. And by midnight, things clear up and you head into a more clear sky day as you start off your week next week. Right now, temperatures have dipped to 18 degrees overnight. It will be 17 degrees in Oshawa. Hamilton's on the cool side, 17 degrees as well. Now let's take a look at your 5-day forecast. So tomorrow, that heat warning that we were talking about, as you can see, it will be Saturday and Sunday. Sunday, 70% chance of rain, risk of thunderstorm. Monday and Tuesday, dry conditions, 20 degrees, 24 lows. By the evening, it will cool down to 10 degrees and 14. Wednesday, about 40% chance of rain. So on that note, I am going to say this. If you are heading to the Pride Parade, you know me, Dwight, and my props, you can have your things on you. Okay. And you can keep it dry with your umbrella.
There you go.
There you go. You can still have fun.
We can party with an umbrella. That's not a problem
right?
at all.
I think so too. Or a rain jacket.
There you go. Thank you, Dahlia.
Thanks, Dwight.
Starting tomorrow, 55 City of Toronto pools will be open for evening and weekend swimming. City outdoor pools will run on partial schedule evening and weekends until full regular schedules begin on June 30th, which is when the school year ends, and the city's remaining pools are also scheduled to open. Splash and spray pads across the city have been open since last month. Concerns about job security and layoffs are part of a trend for tech companies. Businesses have been grappling with a number of challenges, including rising interest rates and lower stock prices. Nisha Patel looks at the impact on the tech sector.
3, 2, 1, action.
Bright lights, flashy booths, big stages. One of the biggest tech conferences is normally all about deal making. This year, many investors and entrepreneurs are concerned.
Some of the stages have been standing room only, and that's because when things become uncertain, everybody goes searching for answers.
After years of explosive growth, tech companies suddenly face a difficult reality. With rising interest rates, investors have less access to cheap money. The tech-heavy Nasdaq is down 30% this year. Stocks like Meta, PayPal, and Shopify have lost more than half their value since January.
No one wants to see moments like this in crypto.
Cryptocurrencies have been hit even harder.
Some companies will fail and some companies will, do pretty well.
Dina Shacker is a Silicon Valley investor. She says companies will have to make tough decisions to stay afloat.
It's reasonable to think about adjustments to growth plans and really just get through the storm. This idea of, surviving so you can thrive.
A handful of companies here say they're still taking resumes. Others say their plans have changed, either freezing all hiring plans or letting staff go. More than 21,000 tech workers in the U.S. have lost their jobs this year. There have been fewer layoffs in Canada, though analysts say there may be more in the months ahead.
Last year, the general sentiment across the industry, as well as within the company, was we need to grow, we need to rapidly expand our market, we need to hire lots of people, and so the layoff was sort of a dramatic turn of events.
Sumeru Chatterjee moved to Vancouver for a tech job in 2020, but his company cut 20% of its workforce in April. Now he's scrambling to keep his visa, and he's starting his own business.
I know I'll never fire myself or never lay myself off.
Perhaps a safer path over what may be a rocky road ahead for his industry. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
As we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. The TSX ended the week positive for the first time since the beginning of the month, rising 345 points. The Dow closed up by 823 points. The dollar also trading higher at 77.32 cents US. We'll be right back. Caribbean Carnival doesn't start until late next month, but some children were already hard at work today preparing for the festivities.
It shows, it gives them an opportunity that they wouldn't otherwise have. And, for the world to see it on the road, on the big stage, it just goes to show that they could dream big and work hard and good things will happen.
Children from 2 Toronto middle schools designed float panels specifically for the Kiddie Carnival Parade. That happens 2 weeks before the Carnival's Grand Parade at the end of July. The panels were designed to celebrate diversity and bringing people together. Raptors assistant coach Jamal McGlure helped organize the event, which is a collaboration between the Children's Breakfast Club and Toronto Police. Final check of the forecast with Dahlia.
Yes, Dwight, we have so much going on this weekend. But first, let's start off with right now, we're sitting at 28 degrees. Windsor, the hot spot, 30 degrees. And London, it feels like 27 degrees. And like I was talking about earlier, there is a heat warning that is in effect, and that will last until Sunday. So overnight tonight, it will cool down to 18 degrees. Tomorrow, 31 degrees. And with that humid X, it will feel like 34. And Sunday, there is a risk of thunderstorm. 30 degrees, 70% chance of rain. Will cool down by the evening. So all you got to do is have some things with you. Have your sunglasses. You can have all the stuff that you need and your umbrella and enjoy the parades.
Thank you, Dahlia. Have a good weekend.
Have a wonderful weekend, Dwight. Take care.
That is our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here on Monday. Stay safe. Have a great weekend, everybody.